Well, let's think where to start, really, I suppose. I think I was probably a punk before I knew I was a punk. When I was about 5, my parents split up, and it was all very messy. But after that, I lived back with my mum and her next partner, who was a musician. So music was always on in our house. Do you remember those old Let's diaries? They had like a pencil that stuck in the end of them. Well, I used to get those sometimes for Christmas. I found a couple of them in the loft a few years ago when I was cleaning it out. January, you start off like quite well, then it becomes usual day, and then it turns into UD, and by about March you're not writing anything in it at all. But when I was flipping through, it was listened to both Boomtown Rats albums, and that was like 1978. So I was born 1969, so I must have been about 9 then, I suppose. So music was always on, and I didn't differentiate between one genre of music or another genre of music. There was music you liked and there was music that you didn't. It was only afterwards that I kind of realised that Ruts, UK subs, vibrators were punk, In the middle of that was like a whole load of other kinds of music which I really liked. Blondie, Squeeze, Boomtown Rats, Elvis Costello. This is 1977, 1978. So they were listening, I guess, to whatever was current. My mum was 20 when I was born, so she would have been 19 when I was conceived. And like I say, by the time I was 5, that marriage was overdone and she was with someone else. So she was a young mum, and I've got a little sister as well, and 2 half brothers, one on each side. But yeah. So my stepdad was a bass player. 1977, he was on tour with John Otway and Wild Willie Barrett. Cool Baby, That's Really Free. It was that tour. We had a million badges, big pink round badges with Cool Baby, That's Really Free written on it. And I remember going to see them like rehearse at Friars in Aylesbury. And their support band, while they were on that tour, was a band called The Flies, who disappeared into obscurity. But the drummer was a guy called Neil O'Connor, and his sister was Hazel O'Connor, who was writing all the stuff for what was it? They made a film and everything, didn't they? Eighth Day, all that, you remember, with the light up suit. So they were all just around the house. I should say that it wasn't just my stepdad's musical proficiency that drew people around to our house. He was also significant quantities of drugs were moving in and out of the household. So whilst on the one hand it sounds like, oh yeah, that's great, and I didn't think anything different really. The drugs bit did bother me though, I will say. Because I'd be that age, 6, 7, 8, and all these people would be coming in and out of the house, and we just lived up the hill in Wolverhampton. There was noise, there was music on. Sometimes I'd have to come down and get a glass of water, and my mum would go, oh yes, there's my little boy, here's my eldest, and I'd have to go and say hello to all these people, and I was really little and I just wanted to get a glass of water, and it smelled funny. Wonder why. So all that was just like going on, I suppose, really. Not all of that was about music. I mean, obviously selling drugs is a criminal activity, so sometimes other people would come round to the house during the daytime. My mum had a table in the hallway, and if anyone had anything in their pockets that they shouldn't do, if they were carrying a weapon or something, then they had to leave that at the door. She had like standards like that. My mum wasn't from that world, she really wasn't. My grandparents both worked down at the works, But I guess when I look back on it, that was her in her mid to late 20s doing stuff that she didn't have the chance to do, maybe because she was really young when she had kids and was trying to be a proper person. I was vaguely aware because Saturdays we'd go and stay at my nan's house. So I'd watch Starsky and Hutch or The Professionals. I'd be allowed to stay up late. And of course, John Craven always had his finger right on the pulse with whatever was going on. So I remember being vaguely worried when I was 6, 7 years old that this was something to do with drugs. That became a theme throughout my later childhood and early teenage years, because I became very much more aware that this was to do with drugs, and that drugs and music were two worlds which were inextricably kind of linked in my household. So I had to be careful what I would say, or who I would bring round to the house, or who could come round for tea, that kind of thing. So I liked the music I liked, and I remember jumping around on the sofa to Boomtown Rats, UK Subs Rats, Stranglers. My mum was very proud of me. I mean, she was a proud mum. I mean, she was completely neglectful and totally fucked to love her heart. But she was very proud of me, and I never felt unloved, But I worried that maybe my parents were under pressure from some mysterious drug dealer, like I say, Starsky and Hutch, John Craven. So I was often torn about, keep quiet about this stuff, or should I be saying to someone and saying, I don't think this is right. So I was anxious. And I know that when I look back on myself now, then I think I probably was an anxious child. But they'd come round, they were perfectly lovely people. I had a signed card, aged 9, from, what's the geezer's name? Nick someone, Hawkwind. He signed me a thing saying backstage pass, free entry to all gigs, and gave it to me on one of my trips down to get a glass of water. Do you know what I mean? The significance of any of this was lost on me, aged 7, 8, 9, however old I was. But I just thought, well, this is grown-ups, and they seem okay, and they're happy. Of course they fucking were, they're off their tits. So as long as they're happy, I'm happy, so there we are. So within that, they also liked Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. I wasn't so drawn to that, although I do remember playing Led Zeppelin really, really loud one day with the windows open and the neighbours coming round and proper fucking banging on the door. What the fuck are you doing? While all this was going on, so 77, 78, the house next door to me, there were some very colourful people living there. They'd got ripped up leopard print t-shirts, they'd got dyed hair, they just looked kind of different, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe that's what I'll be when I grow up. It's funny actually, because I know now one of them at least was a fucking ferret. Which is so funny, because I clearly remember him walking past my front window and into the house. I mean, fuck knows what drugs they were selling next door to ours. I mean, there we go. But yeah, I started to see these people around who were not quite the same. Everyone that came around to my house, most of them were like my stepdad. They kind of had long hair, they had beards. Although we'd got the flies and all of that, he was into that, but he was just a musical kind of person. That's one of his redeeming qualities. He's got various others which are not quite so positive. Anyway, I saw these people and I was like, all right, like that. I remember an assembly when I was in middle school, and the RE teacher talked about some experience. I don't know the context, but he talked about going down to Northampton Market. Someone in tartan trousers with big boots coming up to him with a big Mohican, and he was really scared and worried, and the person just had been really lovely to him. I expect it was some kind of assembly about, don't judge people by their appearances. Do you know what I mean? That was probably the message, I guess. So I suppose I was sort of listening to that kind of music, and there was a look which you were, I kind of like to be like that. But what you do, you're only a little kid, aren't you? I remember going down to the youth centre down the bottom at the Ratcliffe, and I'd see all these people going in there on a Sunday, wheeling equipment in, hang around outside, hoping maybe one of the grown-ups might say hello to me or ask me what I was doing or something like that. And I was really brave one day, and I went in and kind of said hello, and it was like band rehearsals and things. I don't know what band it was. Looking back, I would guess now it was probably, you would know better than me, Alison, it was probably ethnic minority or fictitious or you know...
Seditious Impulse.
Seditious Impulse, maybe. Yeah. Because that was, I knew his mum had been my nursery teacher, Mrs. Bates, and his younger brother was like in a year older than me. He was much older than me, but yeah, Seditious Impulse. So it might have been Seditious Impulse down there. I mean, what a great name for a band, Seditious Impulse. And that was the thing, the names of bands. The first record I ever bought was Puppets of War by Cronjen. Chronic Generation. I mean, it sounds fucking amazing, doesn't it? I bought that from HMV up at the city, which at that time, for me, that was kind of a bit of a scary place to go in and out of, because out the front of Virgin Records was like where everybody sat. All the skinheads sat, a few punk rockers sat, but there was a lot of people there. You were definitely under the spotlight. So for an anxious kid, I think I was probably 12 when I bought that. I don't know what made me go in there and buy it. Because like I say, I was just listening to music generally in the house, and I would choose out of the records. My stepdad had a amazing, now, you know, I wish I'd got his fucking amplifier that he had back then now, and his record deck. It was proper quality like stuff. It sounded fucking loud, and it was raucous, you know. So yeah, that's, I guess, the start of it. That's the very, very seeds which are yet to germinate, I suppose. How sad is all that? I guess what happened was, I think I was about 12 when he first went to prison. Obviously I was younger than that when the police were coming around and raiding the house, because that's the not so fun side of selling drugs. And I remember him, obviously I remember the doors being kicked in and all our stuff being thrown on the floor, and ruined. And we'd all have to sit in the front room while the police were fucking throwing all our stuff everywhere. He'd get carted off. He'd come back, he'd be fucking black and blue. He wouldn't tell us directly, but I'd overhear him saying about, they used to do bad shit in that, well, you know, those days they still do, but they didn't have guns then. They just used to roll people in mattresses and then fucking hit them with big sticks, so the bruises didn't show quite so much, you know. So I knew that those kind of things were happening to him, and it was really scary, actually. It was scary, and I was quite anxious, and I couldn't tell anybody because of watching John Craven and Starsky and Hutch. So I just had to kind of like contain that, I guess. At the same time, there was these kind of like butterfly people, you know, around, who seemed to have their shit together, or at least not give a shit, which I was kind of like drawn to. The not giving a shit and having your shit a bit together. And if you're separate, then you're separate. As I got older and I found my old thing, that you know, the Zounds line, I never once tried to drop out. I couldn't get in from the very start. Like, that was fucking me, really. I couldn't get into anything. I wasn't trying to drop out of anything, and I didn't, you know, none of the. You have no context when you're small. You just have no context. Your life is your life, isn't it? You might know it's different to other people's lives, but you have no context. where does your context come from? Well, I could draw you a little thing now that I'm much older and I've been to university and stuff. But back then as a kid, then I didn't. I mean, when my parents got divorced, I knew she'd had to go to court. I thought that would be in the papers. I thought that would be on the fucking news. She's had to go to court. This is a big deal, right? Yeah. So all of those things were probably inexorably leading me in some kind of direction. I suppose the next kind of like pivotal moment was my stepdad being in jail. So what you do, I mean, he was a fucking cunt, my stepdad. But I didn't know that. I thought he was great, you know. He'd got friends that came round who were cool, that wanted to play chess with me, that I could often beat at chess. I liked him. So we would go and see him. He was in Winson Green, 12, coming up 13. It was like that changeover from middle school to secondary school. So at middle school, I'd liked a lot of the music that my peers liked, you know, Madness, Special, Selector. I didn't like all the, like rockabilly was really big then as well. It was Grease and all that kind of stuff. And I had a friend that was into all of that with the quiff and everything, you know. But and I wasn't cool enough to have a Harrington with all the patches sewn on it. Do you remember that? And I wasn't distinct enough to like be a mod to you know, have targets on and all that. But everyone watched Top of the Pops, and you liked what you liked. I remember watching Tubeway Army and just going, oh God, that's like something from the future. So I think age 12 or so, when he was in jail, was probably when I started listening to John Peel, because he could listen to John Peel in his cell. So when I was writing to him, I could say, oh, did you hear so-and-so? I really like that tune by so-and-so. And he would write back. That was, do you know what I mean, a thing. So your musical kind of awareness diversified outside of your family, because you didn't have fucking Spotify or like any of that shit, did you? Do you know what I mean? Like, how else did people know about music? 12, 13, I liked what I liked. My best friends, Jim, he was a mod. Some of his music I liked. The Jam, I quite liked a bit of Small Faces stuff. My other best friend, Marcus, he was a Teddy boy. Some of his stuff I liked. He was more into the kind of rockabilly thing, and some of that I kind of like the energy of, I suppose. Oh my God, the three of us together, can you imagine? There's like me, Marcus and Jim, and we're all trying by that age. That goes back to that photo outside my nan's house, you know. So I'm kind of trying. We haven't got a tribe. It's like, oh, I want this tribe, I want this tribe, I want this tribe, you know. But we're all mates together. So wherever we went, someone was going to kick the shit out of one of us. Hilarious, absolutely hilarious when I look back on it. I remember bunking the train and going down to Carnaby Street, and we got the shit kicked out of us at one end of Carnaby Street, I think by mods. And by the time we'd walked to the other end, we got the shit kicked out of us by fucking skinheads, because they hated all three of us. It was just like, okay. But I like the Jam and he likes the Jam. We're the same, aren't we? Yeah. Yeah, and I've got stuff going on, I suppose. My stepdad's in jail. That was when I first started taking drugs, 12, 13. My mum needed someone to take drugs with, and as far as she was concerned, that would be me. And the rationale to that was, well, he's going to take drugs sometimes, so he might as well be introduced by drugs in the family, and then at least we can help him understand what drugs do and what's safe and what isn't safe, blah, 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 blah. I mean, what a load of bullshit, you know, but there we are. I'm sure they were doing the right thing. I don't, That point, 12, 13, Chronic Generation, Puppets of War, my first ever record. And then I used to go down to Bob's Records on Wolverton Market, and I bought a compilation album called Punk and Disorderly. Do you remember it with the purple cover? Punk and Disorderly Volume 1. Fucking love that record, still got it. And again, it's like the names. Abrasive Wheels, Vice Squad, Chaos UK. Fucking great names. Even never mind the music. Fucking great names. And you're like, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. I remember being 12, 13 at school, and like, I was a clever kid. I'd always been a clever kid. Top of top sets. That bit me on the arse in later life, but there you go. So I was seen kind of one way at school because I was clever. But my school books, I was super excited to have all these names and be writing them over my school books. I loved all the logos and the symbols. They were on top of the pops. Cockney Rejects, Angelic Upstart, Sham 69, fucking great. And then the stuff which I was finding out about, partly through John Peel, partly through going down to Bob's Records, Dead Kennedys. I mean, Dead Kennedys, what a fucking great name. Too Drunk to Fuck, Crass, Big A, Little A, with a picture of the missile and the willy on the end. Oh my God, I fucking bought that off my mate. Paid him 25p because it said pay no more than 50p on the cover. He'd already got it, so there we are, I'll have that off you. But there weren't many people that was listening to that kind of music that I could kind of link in with. I was very much, hello big people, will you talk to me? Because I'm just hanging around with my mod friend and my teddy boyfriend, and we're getting the shit kicked out of us, and we're all like good friends, but there we are, I stayed friends with those people. They were good lads, and it wasn't about that. It wasn't about a fucking fashion thing. Do you know what I mean? You're just trying to work yourself out. It's not like, oh, we all must be the same. None of us were the fucking same. That's why we got beaten up all the time, because none of us were the same. So one of us would always be the target, and everyone else would always have to try and jump in or encourage everyone else to run away. I guess about that time, yeah, probably when my stepdad was in jail. Again, this is my hang on the fringes, try and suss it out, see if I can make eye contact and speak to someone and then make friends. So the Agora was a big thing. Where are we now? 1980, 1981. I mean, people used to come on the bus to go roller skating, didn't they? Do you know what I mean? From Luton and Dunstable and shit. So there were a couple of my friends. By the time I got to secondary school anyway, I was in the same class as a lad called Liam. His big brother was Johnny Lakes. So same thing. He saw me writing Angelic Upstarts on my books, and he was like, oh, I like the Angelic Upstart. Oh, my brother likes the Angelic Upstart. Oh, is he? Oh, yeah, it's my brother. They were all just kind of like leaving the school. They were probably in the 5th form when I started. Johnny Lakes, Mick Billingham, little Gary Cromwell, everyone used to call him Black Buddha. I don't know if he was New Bradwell boy. He got a big brother called Rocky. And they were all the ones that used to sit outside Virgin. So as I'm going in to get my next 7-inch, I think the next after Crongen was Charge GBH, No Survivors. They'd all be out there, and because I was at school with Liam and I was in his class, I was kind of safe at that point because I was like Johnny's little brother's friend. I mean, it's funny because they used to call me the Packy Punk. I know. And I was like, yeah, that's not a thing. I'm white British, I am. But I was like, well, okay. As long as you're not hitting me. So at that point, probably there was a couple of younger skinhead lads up there. Ian Marshall, who started doing tattooing down at Stony. I don't know if he still does. And another one called Paul Reed. My mum used to know his mum. I remember him when he was about 5 or 6. He was a skinhead by then. He'd got the braces and all that kind of thing. So I'd hang out with like some of those lads on a Saturday, get the bus up there, see them. If I wasn't hanging out with my teddy boy and more friends, most of our hanging out was wandering around Stoney, knocking on girls' houses, seeing if they'd let us in for a cup of tea. That was pretty much it. I mean, we could just have stayed at home and had a cup of tea, really, couldn't we? But do you know what I mean? That was kind of what we thought we needed to do. So I'd wander around the city centre sometimes on a Saturday with them. They'd all be sniffing glue, drinking cider and fighting, just fighting all the time, like randomly. And you're like, what the fuck? I remember some of them coming up to me one day and saying, "Oh, you're not fighting today, are you?" I'm like, "No, I'm like this big. I'm not fighting any day." "Oh, you can hold our coats then." And I'll be like, "Yeah, alright, okay, right, I'll hold you guys." But the great thing by the time I was 13 was when they all went off to do a glue bag, I'd just fuck off home and have a spliff off my mum. Do you know what I mean? I'm fine, crack on. You sit by the heaters in Wolverton and Agora. I'll go home and fucking roll a joint. So all of that stuff was like really mixed up, I guess, in terms of my entry into the world of punk. Does that kind of give some context? Because there were a few lads a couple of years older than me that weren't skinheads, that didn't want me to hold their coats when they were fighting. I really wish I could remember this boy's name, and I can't, but he had a donkey jacket with rudimentary peni written on the back of it. And I was speaking to him, and he lived in Stony Stratford. I went round to his house, and he played me like all kinds of records, which I hadn't even heard on John Peel, you know? And I was like, wow, that's great, do me a tape. So he did me a tape, and it was like, the first Conflict single, 6 Minute War, Flux Pink Indians. Well, no, actually it was before they were Flux Pink Indians. It was Epileptics. So he did me this, like, you know, I think it was the Wessex 82 EP. So 82, I would have been 13. So he did me this tape. I was like, oh yeah, this is my shit. Actually, I found something which isn't the Ruts or the UK subs or even what John Peel's playing. This is my shit. I like this. Skinheads hated me for it. "Oh, you turned into one of those fucking peace punks." Okay. Yeah, I think I always was, because I'm shit at fighting. I just get beaten up all the time, so clearly I'm really shit at fighting. You lot go out and look for a fight. Me and my pals, we're running away all the time. But I suppose the thing was the energy around it. Because although I was nervous and anxious, I was going down to see my stepdad in Winson Green Jail. You know, that wasn't a nice jail. Barry Prosser had apparently kicked himself to death a year previously in a cell on his own. And so there were, you know, protests and stuff outside as you were going in. They were horrible, the prison staff, and you had to go down past them all. There's me in my like tight black market jeans and my Dr. Martens seconds that my nan had got from the works for me, you know, so that I could fit in enough to not get my head kicked in every Saturday. And I was like, yeah, fuck you cunts. Who the fuck are you? Yeah. This isn't right. I was angry. I was actually really, really angry. And then the music I was listening to from Rudimentary Peni Guy, it was like, oh, okay, things are shit. It's not me that's shit. That's good. And being angry is probably a reasonable response, because things are really unfair, and it's okay to be angry when things are really unfair. And what is this about then? Oh, okay, yeah, it's not fucking Asian immigrants or West Indian immigrants like the skinheads see the issue as being. Or it's not someone that likes a different kind of music to... Oh, it's the fucking system, isn't it? It's the system. So there we are. We now have a big umbrella term of things to be rebellious about, and righteously rebellious about. A direction, a focus. Because I don't like violence. I'm not good at it. I would rather avoid it, but I'm fucking really furious. And I guess from there, then there becomes a much narrower kind of focus in terms of my musical and political kind of alignment. The rules are simple, even though they're really contradictory. The rules are really simple. And listening to Flux Pink Indians, listening to Crass, listening to Poison Girls, it's like, boom, head blown. Okay, here's stuff I don't know about. I'm really good at school, but here's stuff that they're not teaching me. I remember one of my history teachers getting really pissed off with me. I was probably about 14, 15. It's like, oh, well, I expect if we were talking about the history of the working classes in 19th century Britain, you'd be paying me a bit more attention. Yeah, I probably fucking would, because what you're talking about, kings and fucking queens and stuff, is like bullshit, mate. Absolute fucking bullshit. And I'm not interested. We're not talking about normal people, are we? I mean, those of us that are old enough, we remember the late 70s, early 80s. It was a political time. Music reflected that. Society reflected that. We'd gone from a period in history post-war. Never had it so good. Arguably, that's not true, but there we are. We certainly went from a period where there was full employment, and that wasn't the case anymore. People older than me that had started apprenticeships down at the works, all my family had worked down there, generations, getting laid off, not knowing what to do with themselves. I honestly thought, well, I will leave school, I will never get a job, you know. My stepdad was out of jail. Well, what are you going to do? He's not going to get a job, you know. He's got a criminal record now. That's it. He's fucked. What's he going to do? Deal drugs. There we are. That's what he did do. So all of that stuff was really kind of sharpening your consciousness, I guess. And music, certain specific types of music, summed it all up, and you were like, that's fucking great. There's someone at the other end of the country that's listening to this tune, and they get it, and they get it in the same way that I get it, and it doesn't matter, because we've got something in common, and that's what's important, because it's the things that we have in common that we really need to focus on, rather than the things which set us apart, because that's kind of artificial. And that's why punk rock was great for me, because I couldn't afford, my parents couldn't afford the Puma sports bag. I had some fucking old satchel from Maze's or something, do you know what I mean? So I was never going to be able to join in with any of that, which was fine, because if your head is in a place where I don't want to join in with any of that, then you legitimately don't give a fuck. You don't care. That's fine. That shit, I don't want it. And I mean, God, the world was not as consumerist then as it is now. I mean, wow. So we're still trying to find things to do, and people that are the same and think the same. So some of that was people that would be naughty at school. Now, I wasn't a naughty kid at school, but funnily enough, all the naughty kids were my friends. And again, there was that really weird mixture. I had a friend, Mick Kingsman, whose brother Tommy Kingsman was one of the kind of mods around Milton Keynes. Well, he was useful to know because Milton Keynes in those days was quite spread out. The buses were shit, but they'd all got scooters, so you could jump on the back of a scooter, which meant that you could get across the city to where there might be a party and there might be something fun going on. So we would go and kind of do that, which was more fun than wandering around the city centre waiting for the next fight or who was going to beat us up, or slightly drifting off whenever we went off glue sniffing down the Agora. It was like, okay, right, there is more. So we'll jump on the back of someone's Vespa and, hey, this is exciting, we're at a party in fucking Tinker's Bridge now, hurrah. But it meant that you could kind of get around. And because I knew him, then I met flat-faced Bob, who lived just round the corner from me, Bob Roach. Oh my God. He was a year younger than me, and even though he lived in Wolverton, he went to school on the other side of the city at Wolfton. So he knew all the kids over there. So that was interesting because, again, his music of choice was kind of the same as mine, and he'd worked out how to spike his hair up much better than I could. But other than that, he was just a total fucking hoover for anything that was in front of him. Irish Catholic family, not great for Bob at home in the same way as it wasn't great for me. So we would just like jam up. Again, I'm young here, I was 14 or so when I was hanging about with Bob. 70p for a pint of sherry from the off licence, so 35p each. You could get a pint, you took your own bottle, they'd fill it up out of the barrel. You get a pint of sherry between you, jump on the bus and go and find something punky to do, which would be like Pear Tree. So I remember seeing loads of bands at Pear Tree, Screaming the Fits, Exit Stance, and there was a kind of older group of punks around. One of them you know very well. And I remember meeting him at one of those gigs and asking him how he managed to get spikes in his hair quite so fucking solid. Pear soap was the secret, so that was great. That was easily adopted. And when I was hanging around with Bob, oh my God, we did some crazy shit. I remember nicking a fucking barrel of beer from Springfield Pavilion, bumped up over the fence and rolled it down the hill to the grid road to the bus stop. The third bus finally let us get it on. The first two wouldn't accept us with this keg of pressurised beer, and we were trying to take it to Fuller Slade. There was a girl at my school and she was moving house, so she was having a party, like basically trashing the house before they all moved out, and we lugged to this 40 pint keg of pressurised beer and smashed the top off with a hammer. And everyone wanted to be our friend, and we were like, oh no, this is our beer. I got kicked in the face, I got stabbed that night, my friend got 2 of his ribs busted. But the funniest thing was getting the keg down the slope and onto the bus and then trying to persuade various bus drivers to let us take it on there. But while I was hanging around with Bob, good Catholic boy, he knew a Catholic punk girl. Oh my God, punk girls, they were fucking gold dust. When you were 14, 15-year-old. We've been wandering around trying to get let in for a cup of tea, whether they've got spiky hair and they're like Susie and the Banshees or not, we don't care. But fuck me. So I remember going around to this girl's house with Bob. She wasn't in, but there was a cold potato on the side. I remember nicking the cold potato and eating that on the way out. Anyway, that turned out to be my now wife. Didn't realise that at the time. And I was 15 then, I guess, when I met her. So then there's a whole other segue in terms of punk rock music politics. Because now I'm not trying to, I'm not a single male, age 14, 15. Trying to navigate what's okay and what isn't okay in my world and the world of skinheads and the world of being beaten up all the time and all of that. Now it's slightly different. I remember seeing her on the bus. It was 410 from Stony. I got off at the top of Stacey Bush's. Fuck knows where she was going to, but she had black spiky hair anyway, and I smiled at her and she smiled back, and I thought, all right, that's a good sign. And then I saw her at a party up at Centrecom like 2 or 3 weeks later. I was with one of my pals who used to hang around with all the scooter boys. We'd scraped up some money. We must have nicked it. I think we nicked it from the Rose and Castle, because we'd gone to Connie off licence and spent it all on Special Brew. I mean, they didn't used to ID you in those days, did they? It was fine. 2 cans of Special Brew. I was a lightweight. We were gone. We went to a party at Centrecom. So that was a whole new journey then, because she had an older brother who was kind of quite cool because he was at Stantonbury, so you knew your man in there. They'd been to Glencoe climbing. He knew Jim Pierce. He'd known Kaz as well. He knew Jeeves, been dating Joe Wright. So again, she had access to a whole load of additional music which I'd never come across. But luckily I could impress her with my vast arsenal of pay no more than 50 pence black and white poster cover singles. But she liked stuff which, like, yeah, I mean, I would never have listened to Hagar the Womb or anything. Rebella Ballet, that would have been a bit too, I don't know, not quite angry enough. So there you have the start of a beautiful synchronicity, really, because between us we could make one another brave enough to venture further than Tinker's Bridge and Fishermead parties. Or she was always a little bit more down the kind of Killing Joke, Theatre of Hate, Dance Society kind of thing, which I would, you know, that wasn't my thing. That wasn't hardcore enough, you know, they weren't political enough. Again, I kind of liked the darkness of it, I suppose. But it meant between us we could kind of like branch out a bit. I think by that point, with my friend Bob, we'd probably started going up to the Rose and Castle sometimes. We could sometimes afford half a pint while we were up there. One of Bob's friends from Woofton was a lad called Brian. What's his surname? Whiteland. I think it was Brian Whiteland. He'd got a brother Gary, older brother Gary. So he would often be in the pub. Sometimes they'd get us a drink. But we met other people in there. I remember Stefan the first night that he turned up in Milton Keynes with his brand new tartan bondage trousers on and his push bike, and he was with Jim Pierce. I didn't know them, but I remember that night when they were both there at the Rose and Castle. And they were kind of quite nice, actually, all that bunch. Most of them were the kind of like the Newport lot. So it was those bands, it was Scream and the Fits and all of them. And amongst them, people like Podge and Brian, Toad. There weren't many places to go, really, like for a general... So that seemed to be the place. So we'd go up there when we could and chat to those people and find out what was happening, and then join in with it if there was a way we could manage to join in with it. Brian was good because he worked for British Rail, so he'd always know like when the milk trains were coming back from London and stuff like that, so we could bunk a train down there and manage to get our way back, and so that was kind of not so scary when you're 15, 16, I guess. And we'd go around people's flats and stuff. I'd almost always got access to drugs because of my house, so I'd have a bag of weed or a little bit solid more often that I'd kind of pounced off my parents. That was a good way in with like older people. It's not like now where you can stop any ute dem on a scooter and fucking ask them if they're serving up a 10 bag and they'll like sort you out. So I guess that was the next level of all of that, really. It was then going down to London and joining in with some of that stuff that was going on in a place that seemed very far away to Milton Keynes, but actually was like really, really close. And then you meet other people, don't you? And I was still only 15, 16, 17, I suppose, at this point. So we'd go down and see all kinds of bands in all kinds of places, generally £1.50 to get in, and there'd be 4 or 5 bands on. Lost Cherries, Rebel About Conflict. I don't know how many last ever Conflict gigs I must have been to. Last ever! We're gonna fucking fuck some shit up tonight. Yeah, same as 3 months ago when it was the last ever. But it was good fun, you know, and we liked all that. I can't think really where I was getting records from by then. Gigs and stuff, I think there'd always be someone there with a box of stuff. Sometimes you'd like get a record if you could, swap stuff around. I was always a bit of a collector.
Have you still got all your vinyl now?
Yeah, of course I have. And down the line, a load of my vinyl got nicked and I had to then fucking replace it. Because I was gutted about it. All my old fucking Crass records got nicked. All had to be replaced. Luckily, back then it wasn't a thing, so you could find them quite easily. No one wanted them, did they? So where am I? I guess I'm about 16 now. I've met the love of my life and we're going off doing young punky things and trying our best to fit in with our older role models in that world. And working out ourselves what we make of it and what we don't like about it, and we're both processing unknowingly, because we have no context, our own kind of relative traumas of our earlier childhood experiences within all of that, and also just being fucking teenagers, which is traumatic enough. At any point in history, but particularly at that point in history, which was really transitional in terms of the rate of change that was going on. Lots of stuff was up in the air. That's what it seemed like. And I remember it wasn't just because of the music I was listening to. I was terrified about nuclear war. I was terrified about being blown up. It wasn't just because of the stuff I was... That just concreted it for me, that I was right to be terrified. And some of those older people, when I was at secondary school, I don't know if you ever met him, a younger brother actually, who was better looking, called Dominic, but I was friends with Danny Milner. He'd got a car, he was in the sixth form, and he listened to all the same Rudimentary Peni, Flux Pink Indians, and he was super fucking active. So we would jump in the car with him and we'd go off to Molesworth. My parents were off their tits, so they didn't give a fuck where we were or what we were doing. And so we'd go down to Molesworth Peace Camp and we'd meet people down there. And we just would have the best time. Being mischievous, we'd go and do like all the cruise watch stuff, hiding in the fucking bushes with a bucket of paint, throwing it over the windscreens when the lorries were coming past, walking around the perimeter, talking really loudly to the security and the military, going, "Oh, have you heard about the Great Molesworth fucking fire disaster? Oh, no, that's because it's happening tomorrow, isn't it? Oh, shh, they're listening to us." And just fucking winding people. I mean, we were little kids, but it was just, it was mischief, you know. And it was really good fun. And it made you feel empowered in a otherwise disempowering environment. And because Danny had got a car, probably his mum's, she was a German teacher. Love her heart. And it was serious, you know. It was mischief and it was fun, but it was also really serious, and that's kind of where you're at when you're at that age, I guess. And I met some amazing people, and from that there's a whole other dimension starts to open up in terms of what these people do when they're not fucking throwing paint over the windscreens of vehicles, and you know, I mean, you remember people living on Green Common and Molesworth full time, you know, and a whole other avenues of politics that you didn't even know were avenues of politics in terms of gender politics and feminism. For me as a 15, 16-year-old lad, having been too scared to walk into Virgin Records to buy the next Cron-Gen record, or being asked to hold the coats while the skinheads went off fighting, all that stuff was just like, oh, this is all right, actually, that's great. No one's asking me to hold the bolt croppers. I've got them in my hand. Do you know what I mean? So this is something I can actively engage in. This is something where I can join in and really, this is what do they say now? This is a bit of me, you know? And they were all bright, articulate, funny people. They weren't like fucking, love their hearts, all those skinheads. They were all fucking in the care home on Shearman's, on Fuller Slade, do you know what I mean? Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But they were all severely damaged. But there was a target and a focus for and an outlet for doing that sort of stuff, and that was great. I was well up for that. That's fine. I've always got a tube of fucking super glue in my pocket for when I walk past a high street bank or a butcher's shop. That's going straight in the fucking lock. There we go. We'll meet up with our fucking stencils and just go and bomb a place. Go crack an egg? No, go crack a fucking battery farm. There we are. We'll just have our little play on things, and we'll just go out and have fun, like we did when we were wandering around Stony, knocking on doors and trying to get in for a cup of tea. But we're just doing it in a slightly different way that makes us feel okay. I did get kicked out of school for being too mouthy and for having green hair, but that didn't really bother me because I'd already kind of stopped going. I went to my girlfriend's school and pretended to be the new kid because there was more interesting things going on at that school, and they all called their teachers by the first name, and I quite liked that. So I'd just go and sit in the class and say, oh yeah, I just joined halfway through, my family's just moved here. What trip are you going on? Was there room on the coach? And then I started going to like art galleries and theatres because they did all that like day 10 stuff and everything. They never did any of that at Radcliffe. So that was like super good fun. And I like to think very much in the spirit of fucking punk rock. Because we were going to see the fucking Caucasian Chalk Circle and things like that. It was like, oh, okay, this is proper, actually. This isn't just, do you know what I mean? Because the whole thing, and this has always been a theme from then and persistently all the way through, is around kind of authenticity, you know? Is this just a fashion? Is this just something you're doing for now, or is this subhumans, isn't it? You know, are you prepared to die for your beliefs or just to dye your hair, you know? And when you're young like that, you don't think you're going to make it to the age of 30. You're just like, I'm fucking all in, mate, that's fine. What are you going to do? What's the worst you can do? If you don't do it now, you're going to blow me up with an atom bomb in fucking 6 months anyway, so let's just have it. And you know what? I don't feel scared. I don't feel scared in the same way that I did when I was 6 years old and the police were kicking my door in. And I don't feel scared the same way that I was when I didn't know who the skinheads were going to zero in on next, and whether it might be one of my mates or someone that had given me a lift to a party, or do you know what I mean? I've been on the back of their scooters, but because they're wearing a fishtail parka, then now you think you're going to go and have it with them. I guess all of that stuff was kind of coming in, but it's all, a lot happens over a short space of time, and it's all sort of going on in parallel with one another. We were doing all the Molesworth stuff, but I must have met up with Marcus and Jim because we were all together on a bus. We came through New Bradwell, and by that time the skinheads had lost patience with me. I was no longer tolerated. I was now an official target. And so they'd seen us on the bus and they came stomping up the stairs. My mate Marcus, I mean, his dad used to beat the shit out of him. He wasn't scared of fucking anybody, so he was like mouthing off at them. They started punching him. We were trying to drag him off. The bus driver sped up the hill into Wolverton, didn't stop at any of the bus stops, went all the way down Stratford Road and pulled in at the police station with his hand on the horn. Coppers came out and dragged these fucking skinheads off of us who was like rolling. Yeah, true story. And we were just like, oh, fuck off, Baldy, have a nice night in cells, go on, see you later. And we just like fucking saw him off the bus. Well, that was it. We couldn't go up to the city centre anymore after that, really, because they were, you know, not our best fans. So we just, went down to London with Brian and Podge and people like that instead, which seemed like a much better option, really. Oh, well, I suppose the big thing that happens next is my mum dies. My mum dies, there's been another police raid, we're waiting for all of that to happen. She goes into hospital, she has an operation, she dies a couple of weeks later, just after Christmas. I don't really know what I'm doing by that time. I'm a year into sixth form. After pretending to be the new kid at school, I've decided I'll go to that school. What else am I going to do? And again, there's not that many punk rockers there. That was more the age of, I guess, half man, half biscuit, Smiths. It's kind of watered down, do you know what I mean? So as far as I'm concerned, it's not my thing. Hanging out with some of the people there and some of the old people and still doing what we're doing. But there's only a little kind of unit of us, I guess, that are interested in what's going on at squat gigs down in London and whether we're prepared to bunk a train down there and see what happens. So she dies, and I'm obviously don't know what the fuck to do, you know. Some lovely teachers at that school. And when I look back on it now, I'm, 17, they're probably 22. It's like their first teaching job. I mean, I see them in Tesco sometimes, some of them teachers, you know. And the age difference is negligible now. But they were really encouraging and they were really helpful. And they were like, Si, you need to get yourself out of your family. They knew enough about what was going on with my stepdad and my mum dying to just know that wasn't great. And you'd see them, like if you went on the legitimate protests where you could get the coach and there'd be a gig at Brockwell Park or something like that, they'd all be there. I mean, they wouldn't be on the more secret ones where you'd be hiding in the hedges with your bally on, but you know, they knew that like you were, in their eyes, you were a good kid and oh, this is great and we're teaching these kids. I can see that. So they really encouraged me just to sort my shit out and get to university. So that was what I did. I didn't really know where to go. Stepdad and brother and sister, and you know, he's been doing everything that he's been doing the whole time. You know, I mean, it's not just the drug abuse and the criminal activity. I mean, that's like one level. And my mum, like I say, had kind of standards, you know. You leave your weapons on the table when you come into the house, right? You know, Speedy Malcolm, she used to follow him around with an ashtray. Don't fucking flick ash on my fucking carpet. He was a different kettle of fish, and particularly left unchecked by my mother. And it was only once he was next in jail that I really discovered the full extent of his fuckery. And after my mum had died, and I didn't know what to do. I mean, I more or less just left home then, really. I mean, I'd got friends that lived over at Gifford Park, so I'd go over there, I'd come back, I'd try and look after my little brother and my little sister. My nan stepped in. All the generations very close together in my family. So my nan was 16 when she had my mum was 19 when she had me. So, you know, there was that. I think my brother and sister probably hate me still for having abandoned them and deciding to... I wasn't doing enough A-levels to even go to university. Do you know what I mean? At the point my mum died, it was only because the teachers at school said, "Si, you need to do something. Take third A-level, get yourself out of Milton Keynes. University just gives you a chance to have a, go off and explore." She died late January, and so I started doing a third day, because that's what you do when your mum dies, isn't it? You take on more work, but being a good type A in terms of my attachment strategies, and that was exactly what I did do. There we are, grade A-level, government and politics. Just pick something simple, which I know I can write a load of fucking essays, basically from reading fucking Crass and Flux of Pink Indians and all the other fucking fanzines and shit that I've got from hanging out at Molesworth, right? So that's fine, I'll do that. So I did that and went off to live in Norwich for a bit. That was fucked up. By that time I'd already been kind of moving around by hitchhiking, the squat parties in London. I'd met people from Brighton and North as well, actually, Leeds, Telford. But Norwich was one of the places where I had an offer from, and Norwich was a fine city. It says it on the sign when you drive in. And although it was just closing down, it had been home to one of the largest squats in Europe, Argyle Street. So we'd been down to visit for gigs, all that kind of thing. It was slightly different kind of scene. So Argyle Street was closing down, but we'd been down to meet all the, archetypal crusties, right? They literally were. And we were coming with our sort of like Milton Keynes, I'd like to say Milton Keynes credentials, but they weren't, it didn't really count. So some of those people were a bit sniffy, but we moved into a squat on the gloriously named Unthank Road. There is actually a place called Unthank Road, and it's one of the main arterial roads that comes from Norwich City Centre out to the extremes. And I met another nice bunch of people, and I learned how to wire up electricity from the street light outside. Got nicked for that. Conspiracy to steal electricity. Detained but never charged. And I moved there because I've got a place at university, except I didn't get my dates very well sorted, so I kind of missed the start of university, which was a bit of a shame. But I managed to find my way back in. My stepdad was out of jail again, but he hadn't filled in any of the fucking forms that he needed to fill in for me to get my grant and stuff, so it was a little bit tricky. But it was alright. In the squat you could manage. But a lot of those squatters, they weren't like the Argyle Street lot. They were not together. Like, you would come, and the place where we lived, only some of the rooms were usable. Some of them, the ceilings had like fallen through and stuff like that. They'd all got fireplaces, so you could light a fire and cook. But it wasn't great. The electricity worked sometimes, sometimes not. But you come home and there'd be fucking smackheads, and someone just would have turned up and moved in. You'd be like, who the fuck are you? When I first moved in there, I used to take tea with milk and 2 sugars. It only took a couple of months before I switched to black tea, and I've never gone back. I'm not buying fucking milk and sugar for you fucking junkies to lunch it off all the time. Fuck off. Sort your shit out, mate. All of that kind of riled me a little bit. And going to university was not what I thought it would be. I basically studied like sociology at A-level, and I just picked that when I went to university. My mum had died, picked something, sociology, great, big words for why the system fucks you up. And then I can write essays about that with big words that I've learned, great. So that fitted. But I thought when I went to university, oh, I'll meet some more nice people, like there was at Stantonbury. They weren't the same as me, but they were nice, and I didn't always like their music, but we fitted in, you know. It wasn't like that. I remember waiting for a bus to get back to my fucking cold, dark, powerless floor, and these people at the bus stop, you know. Oh, well, when Mummy saw how far campus was from town, she said, I simply must have a car for next year. And where is one going to ski this year? You know, and I didn't realise that the UEA is actually like one of those universities, if you're too fucking thick to get into Oxford and Cambridge, but you're really rich, it's one of them ones like Canterbury where that's where they all go. Do you know what? When I look back on it now, Alison, I'm sure a lot of them were really lovely, but I had so many chips on my shoulder at that age. I literally had a fucking packet of salt in one pocket and a bottle of vinegar in the other, and I was just like, fuck you all. I'd hitched down there with a fucking rucksack. By the time I went back to Milton Keynes to get any more of my stuff, my dad was back in jail, the house was getting repossessed, my sister and my brother were living with my nan. I was like, okay. This is bullshit. While he's in jail, I find out some of the other things that he was abusing other than drugs. So then we've got social services and probation and all that kind of malarkey, you know. I'm going to try and get custody of my little brother, aren't I? You know, my little sister's still only 15. She needs an adult to be her legal guardian. Well, obviously that's going to be me. What else would my mum have wanted? Right? This is where it does make me get emotional. I mean, I couldn't understand why apparently I wasn't a good bet. I looked after him just fine. Anyway, they ended up staying with my nan. That was okay. My sister only stayed there for a bit. And then, of course, for my little brother, his dad come out of jail and yeah, he ended up back with him, but all of that was horrible. I don't really know how I managed to get a degree out of it, to be honest with you. The punk scene in Norwich was slightly different. Things were really kind of like fragmenting and splintering at that time. We were still going to a lot of the things that we'd always done, and we were still linked in. By that time, brother had grown up, and so his little crew were like of a similar age, and these were like the younger siblings. So like Jim Pierce's little brother and all that kind of stuff. They're all. Do you know what I mean? It's like funny how all of that works. So we'd go back to visit Milton Keynes and be like, oh, I wish I'd never left. There's like stuff happening here now, the counterpoint, you know. So we'd come back if there was stuff happening in Milton Keynes, and we'd see our younger siblings and our old friends in Milton Keynes, and then we'd go back to Norwich, and I'd go and pretend to be a student and write essays about the system, and we'd go to whatever was going on in Norwich, and a lot of it was political. But again, it's like, I don't know, you've got the fucking Socialist Workers' Party, you've got people selling Black Flag, you've got like the anarcho-syndicalists, and just like, oh, can't we all just get along? And everyone hates each other, and you're just like, oh my God, this is like, I was friends with a Mod and a Ted at the same time. You're from Milton Keynes, which is a place of derision anyway, you know. But I did meet some really nice people in Norwich, and not just punks, and that was the weird thing. A lot of the work that was there was land work, so, you know, you get picked up on the corner of the street at 5:30 in the morning and dropped off in the field by a ganger. You pick peas or apples or potatoes or whatever the fucking crop is. He rips off the Eastern Europeans for tax and national insurance, which obviously they're not due to pay at that point in history. But I met some nice people doing that. Lots of people kind of come and go, and lots of people had still got links to the history that they'd been in Norwich that I hadn't been part of. And by this time, it's 1987 to 1990. So it's the start of illegal raves, and people I met had got big sound systems. They're playing reggae. Had always been a theme, going back to Madness and Select. Hip hop hadn't, but that's where I was kind of introduced to all of that. Danger Zone sound system. So I don't tell anyone I've got this rig in my garage. You can fucking hear it for 5 miles, mate, when you got it on 2. I mean, don't tell anyone. So I just met all those kind of people and went to all those different free parties, which were ticked a load of my boxes, really, because it's like, oh, we're back to no one giving a shit. That's great. We've got punks here, we've got dreads here, we've got fucking middle class students, and everyone's having a nice time. That's great. And we all think the same way, and we're all going to stand up to the police. And I'll see them, at least some of these people, next week, when it was like the Tommy Robinson of his day, do you know what I mean? And they would bust people in, like Norwich was one of those, you can imagine, white supremacist places. So we'd go down there, anti-fascist action, and that was fine. I was happy to roll around in the street with those people. I didn't feel scared of them by that point, and have a bit of a nice time. All of that because all the people that I'd met that had been the old Argyle Street squatters, when that street got closed down, they were all buying small vans, trucks. There was a little site over at Bowthorpe. We'd go over there. Some people didn't even have vehicles. They were just like living in benders and stuff, you know. But we would go with them to what was allowed then in terms of the free festivals, because rave was only just starting. So that was where rave kind of infiltrated, and everyone started getting worried, or more worried, about the fact that people are having fun without anyone taxing it. So I remember going to one of those Ribblehead, where I met 2 of my best friends, who I also used to often see when I came back to visit, Milton Keynes. Bump into up at Campbell Park, or if there was a gig on at Counterpoint, something like that. One of them might be doing the food, or someone would be in there probably pissed and talking shit, and it would just be like nice times and familiar and homely. And I remember going to Ribblehead, and that was a real mixed bag, and that sort of epitomised a lot of it. That was the whole brew crew, fucking cut your hair for 50 pence, sell you some gin for £1. All with their benders stuck in those like pits in the ground, so they were all floating after a like day of rain, and you're just like, oh my god, you people are idiots. But again, it's that whole, oh, you apparently don't fit in, you're apparently not proper, we're proper. You know, I don't know who you people are. I've never fucking seen you on a fucking hunt sabs, or fucking throwing rocks at the police, or rolling around in the road with a Nazi. I've never seen you at any of those places, and these people I know because I've seen them there. There are shared experiences. So it's horrible, because it makes you go back to all those insecurities that you have, when you're looking out the window at the people with the leopard skin clothes on, and you're thinking, oh, I wish I could be like that. Except you're like, I don't want to be like that. I don't actually want to be like that. You're a fucking idiot. And now, the grand old age of, I don't know, what, 20? I've got a clearer idea about who I am, and I don't care, you know, I don't care. And I don't care if I want to listen to Crass, or Minor Threat, and then I want to listen to Public Enemy, or Marvin Gaye, or Lee Perry. Fuck off, you know. because I know now who my people are, and the term punk is broader than if you're listening to this, or if you're wearing that, or if you're doing this, or if you think like this, like it always actually like fucking was. Do you know what I mean? Really. But it takes you that bit, which I guess really are your like formative years in a way anyway, where you're working out what's real, what isn't real, where do I fit, where do I want to fit. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because I kind of think, you know, I'm proud to say, people would say, you know, oh, so when you were younger, Si, you were a bit of a hippie, and you go, no, I wasn't a hippie, I was a punk. That's what I was. Even though most of that time I might have been listening to hip hop or reggae, you'd still say, no, I'm a punk, because the ideals are the same. And that was where things switched again, I suppose, because that point in musical history sort of got a little bit the same. I didn't want to listen to the next three-chord thrash because they didn't really seem to be adding anything to it, whereas when I listened to Public Enemy or NWA or De La Soul, any number of Ice-T, De La Soul, Public Enemy, who else really grabbed me? Tribe Called Quest, Brand Nubian. When you started listening to that, and then you're going, oh, but where's that sample come from? And then you start kind of exploring all of that, and you're like, yeah, fuck, this is like... It didn't just happen in 1976, 1977, and you missed it, you know, and then you were kind of coming to it and filling in with whatever was there. There's a thread that runs all the way through in terms of how music, community, political thought and action has all kind of combined in a way which we hope will remain universal, despite attempts to kind of commodify it. Because it happens. I mean, it happened to punk. It's happened all the way through with reggae. Cultural appropriation, you know, and that's not about a black or white thing or a US UK thing. Cultural appropriation. There's a need for people who either are or feel oppressed, disadvantaged, disenfranchised, to be able to articulate and express those feelings in a way that they communicate and share them, because that's just good for them individually and personally, and often it's good for whoever hears it because it has meaning, and it means that whoever hears it doesn't feel like they're alone, and it gives them ideas, and with those ideas they might create something so that someone else doesn't feel alone. Yeah, so that's why I don't like punk. Firmly holding on to the fact that I'm closer dying than I've got less in front than I have behind, and feeling like I haven't compromised, and actually feeling quite proud of myself for not compromising, because that's the thing with when I was little and I was listening to punk. It's fine, isn't it? Don't eat meat, don't be racist, don't be nasty to girls, you know. I've learned that the world is full of contradictions, you know. I think where it's left me is feeling happier that being passive aggressive is better than being aggressive most of the time. That making mischief and having fun is something that you should always have as an aim and an objective, even if you're not managing to do it. I think working out what your actual priorities are, having an open mind and a questioning mind and not accepting things at face value. I think being humble and being accepting, knowing your own limitations and those of others, I think trying to make a difference and make the world a better place for fuck's actual sake are all things which I would hold on to now, despite acknowledging that, do you know what, the ideals I might have held as a 15-year-old, I very quickly came to realise that unless I lived in a cave and I only picked up food which I found lying on the ground, one way or another I was going to be part of the system. And picking my battles and choosing where and how I was going to compromise. It's like all these people that are vegetarian now, Alison, do you know what I mean? And but for those youngsters mainly who think, yeah, I'm making a difference, and you start talking to them about palm oil, you know, or the soybean industry, or any of the ways that global capitalism will take whatever it is that you hold dear and true and find a way to exploit it and twist it and make money from it. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, that's fine. If you're doing that and that's your choice and your eyes are open, that's okay. Have your eyes open. But do not be a sanctimonious cunt that fucking looks down your nose and says, oh, you're plastic. Oh, you're not really fucking proper. Fuck off. Have a fucking look at yourself before you start condemning other people. Try thinking about what it might be like for them. And I mean, look, I've chosen, I could have used my vast array of talents and skills to have earned myself huge amounts of money by lending my shoulder to the capitalist cause. I have absolutely no doubt that would be true. I could have gone into fucking advertising or the media or banking, and I'm sure there's a load of lovely people that work in all of those areas, so that's fine, and I'm not saying anything about that. And I'm also not saying that I didn't do any of those things because I'm too lazy or too scared or didn't have the opportunity, do you know what I mean? But for me, we all have to support ourselves, and I have elected to feel that I am not selling out by working alongside groups of people in our communities who are disadvantaged, disempowered and discriminated against, and speaking truth to power on their behalf, and wherever I can, and working in a way which is as humble and accepting and understanding of all the flaws that make up imperfect human beings doing their best in a system which is not of their choosing and which is not of their making, in order to try and just sustain themselves and their families and doing their best. And I think that is fucking punk rock, actually. So fuck off.
Do you feel that's your ending point?
I think fuck off's probably a good ending point, isn't it? Yeah.